Hi students, this is Teacher Josh, and we are taking a look at another article in the Smithsonian. It's called The Long Haul. All right, let's take a look here. So we're looking at the Smithsonian issue January through February 2025. And as mentioned earlier, we're looking at maybe one of the oldest, most beautiful buildings in Boston. And it has kind of a dark past. Let's go take a look. So it's called the Long Haul. The Long Haul. And so this particular building that you're looking at was and still is a lively marketplace in the city of Boston. And it's known as the Cradle of Liberty. Let's take a look at some of these words. What does it mean, the Cradle of Liberty? What's a cradle? Well, a cradle is what a newborn baby is placed in to sleep next to its mommy's bed, right? It's just a small little bed for a baby. So when it says the Cradle of Liberty, it literally means where liberty was born, where it started. Okay, so we're looking at Faneuil Hall. Faneuil Hall is the name of this building here. And it has a grasshopper weather vane. Kind of hard to see because of the title here, but a weather vane is this thing up on the top of the building that when the wind blows, it moves. That's called a weather vane. And it's an imitation of London's Royal Exchange. So let's talk about this famous hall. So you guys can see in the picture here that this particular building is an American icon. Here it is in the background, and you can kind of see the merchant or the market area. Look how busy it is. Really incredible, right? So there's a lot of trading going on here. And, well, let's see what we can learn about this particular hall. I think it's kind of interesting. It says, Boston was a colonial outpost. In 1740, there was only 16,500 people living in Boston. Not exactly a huge town. But one of the people who lived there, his name was Peter Faneuil. And he comes from French descent. And he gifted this particular merchant hall or area for merchants, this marketplace, to the city. He was fabulously rich. And we're going to find out in a minute how he got rich. So you can see here in this picture, there's a picture of, it says a bustling Quincy market in 1906, below Peter Faneuil himself. So this is a portrait. Nice looking wig there, fella. A portrait, by the way, this word portrait is just a name for a painting of someone's likeness. It's just, they didn't have cameras, so they painted pictures of a person. And you had to have a lot of money to do it. All right, so he builds, Mr. Peter Faneuil builds this city marketplace, and he himself is a vendor, a merchant. A vendor is just someone who buys and sells stuff. So that's what a vendor is. The purpose of the marketplace was to meet the ambitions of a growing city. What are ambitions? It means the desires of a growing city. And boy, was this place growing like crazy. So you had men like Peter Faneuil, and a few other really rich merchants that steamroll. It says they steamroll smaller traders to make this marketplace happen. What does it mean to steamroll? It just means they ran over them. They just made a decision, ran over these other guys, and did whatever they wanted. That's what it means. So this building is going to end up being a pretty important place for the next 284 years. And we're going to see some of the famous people that ended up speaking in this Faneuil Hall. in Boston. All right, so this next paragraph, it talks a little bit about Peter Faneuil and how he came to be rich. He's from a French family, okay? French means his descendants are from France. He moves to Boston as a young man to apprentice with his uncle. Apprentice means to work alongside and learn the trade, the business. That's what an apprentice is. But soon Faneuil is off and running. He's expanding the family fortune by trading. Here's how he does it. Trading high quality New England cod for European luxury goods. So they're in the fishing business. They're catching cod and they're trading it for high-end European luxury goods. It is trading and selling. And here's where it gets dark. He sends a lot of the really terrible fish to the Caribbean to feed the enslaved laborers. Who are enslaved laborers? These are Africans that have been kidnapped and taken to these farms in the Caribbean to work in terrible conditions as slaves. So that's what an enslaved laborer is. There were molasses and sugar and rum plantations in the Caribbean, and so that's how this guy made his money. Not only did he make his money trading cod for high-end European products, he was also, sadly enough, in the slave trade. And they have documented proof that on The Jolly Bachelor, he had 20 kidnapped Africans that he sold into slavery. And in fact, we even know that he ended up, when he died, like a year after he finished constructing this public meeting hall and merchant hall, that he had 5 slaves that he himself owned on his Boston estate. So this is the dark history of America. So let's talk a little bit about some of the famous things that happened in this hall. So the Revolution, right? It rings out. Shots are fired in Concord, Massachusetts, and the Patriots are up in arms against royal taxes. This is in the 1760s. Then in 1773, Samuel Adams, who, by the way, is one of the signers of the Constitution, one of the founding fathers of America, he initiates the Boston Tea Party from the hall's lectern. The lectern, what is a lectern? Well, a lectern is kind of like a wooden stand, okay, where the person who's speaking gets behind it and speaks. So he actually starts this whole thing called the Boston Tea Party. What was that about? Well, the British were going to impose high taxes on tea, and a bunch of colonists went onto a ship and tossed all the tea into the Boston Harbor. So that's how it got its name, the Boston Tea Party. And it was really the beginning of this revolution to gain freedom from Great Britain. George Washington, the first president of the United States, also made a toast to mark the 1-year anniversary of the fateful shots that had been launched during the Revolutionary War. So even he made a toast at the lectern 4 years after Samuel Adams made his little speech. So a lot happening here. Also, we learn a little bit about the myth and legend of a couple other really noteworthy things to say. Jefferson Davis, the future leader of the Confederacy. Okay, that's when the southern states broke away from the northern states because they wanted the right to have slaves, right? Their entire economy was based on slavery. Well, guess what? Jefferson Davis made a speech at this building. Also, throughout the years into modern days, suffragists, these are people fighting for the right for women to vote. Abolitionists, these are people trying to stop slavery and even the LGBTQ community have made speeches in this heavily Catholic city. So I think I'd like to sum up this article by saying, in recent days, America has had a reckoning with its past, and there's been a big push to rename the building because of its dark past and the proof that its former owner, Peter Feniel, was a slave trader and a slave owner. So they want to take the name off it and name it after somebody a bit more honorable. Guys, thanks for joining me today. A little bit about the history of the early beginnings of America. It wasn't all perfect, was it? See you again later. Bye.